If you enter the phrase Generation Z is into Google search, the first terms that appear are lazy, screwed, and doomed. If you're a teen, you have also probably been called apathetic, narcissistic, and social media obsessed. We hear these labels all the time, from adults, from our parents, from teen experts, from the media, and it's really depressing. However, one of these labels sticks out to me not only because it's accurate, but because it applies to everyone. The reality is we are all social media obsessed, not just Generation Z. We all sleep with our iPhones in our bed, and instead of words, we live in an image-based, technology-saturated world where we use emoji, Vines, and Snapchats to communicate. It's a world where it's really difficult to remember what life was like before 6-second videos existed. But it's also a world where it's possible to make an idea or a concept come to life almost instantaneously, which is pretty cool. When I was younger, getting your thoughts out wasn't as instantaneous. I had a diary and literally had to put a hot pink gel pen to paper in order to get my thoughts down. This is my diary from when I was 16. And as you can see, I was really into John Mayer, bedazzled iPods, and Ugg boots. You'll be happy to know I threw those away. But my diary was this private place where I could write about my hopes, my fears, about going to college, the names of boys I had crushes on, that big fight I had with my mom, just everyday thinking. If you were excited about going to a concert with your friends, you didn't tweet about it, you wrote about it in your diary or your journal. My diary just wasn't this place for me to make collages of John Mayer's face or write down bucket lists of things that I want to do. When I was 16, my mom told me she was getting a divorce, and it really hurt. It didn't help that at the time I was living in Finland as a high school exchange student, so I was very far away. Overseas phone calls were really expensive, and with Google Hangouts and Skyping not yet being a thing, I had to rely on my diary as a source of help in terms of venting and sorting through these complicated feelings I was going through. The good thing is that out of all this, I found out I was really good at venting, and I was really good at writing, and I was able to find my voice later on in high school as an editor for the student newspaper with my very own opinion column. Fast forward to age 21. I had just wrapped up an amazing summer interning at 17 magazine and living in New York City, and I was heading back to the University of Connecticut for my senior year of college, where I'd been chosen as the commentary editor for Connecticut's largest daily student newspaper, the Daily Campus. But even though it was my senior year, and even though I knew I was supposed to be feeling excited, I was feeling super anxious. I was feeling anxious about getting a job, anxious about the future, anxious about everything. And it also didn't help that I found out my dad and stepmom were getting divorced. So here we go again. So ironically, my dad and my stepmom's divorce coincided with the launch of the Huffington Post's divorce section. Created by Ariana Huffington and Nora Ephron, HuffPost Divorce was this informative, inclusive, almost celebratory space on the internet that said, you know what, divorce doesn't have to suck after all. Except I thought that it did, and I wrote about it in my weekly Friday column. Somehow, my column caught the attention of the HuffPost Divorce editor at the time, who tweeted at me and said, hey, read your column, would you want to write about your parents' divorce for us? And I said, sure. So that's how I started blogging as a HuffPost divorce blogger. When HuffPost first launched, the voices being represented on the site were those of divorce attorneys, alimony experts, therapists, and of course divorcees. And here I was, this 21-year-old kid, and I was blogging about what it was like coming home for the holidays as a divorced college student, well, not divorced me, but parents of divorced, and what it was like dealing with awkward family events and all of that fun stuff. And it was the first time where I felt like my words were really being recognized and valued in a predominantly adult space. And the more I wrote about it, the more I realized this really wasn't about my parents after all. It was about me and my story. So for a significant chunk of my life, I've used my words to write about other people, whether it was my parents' divorce in college or even now as an editor at the Huffington Post, I write every day about the amazing teens who are changing the world. And this is what I've found, that even though it's important, I think, as a journalist, because that's what journalism is, writing about other people, as important as it is to write about other people, to give them a platform, to give a voice to those who can't speak, I think it's equally important to remember that we each have our own story, we each have something important to say, and that's really valuable. What I've also found throughout those times is that even though the medium or the platform that I used to share my story changed, what didn't change was words. Whether I was writing in my diary or blogging for a national news site, it's always been about words. And here's what I found. Words can get you dream jobs. Words make up some of the greatest lyrics of the greatest love songs ever written. Words inspire, words make change, and ultimately, words are irreplaceable. The great thing about living in 2015 is that your words can now be heard louder than ever before. If you have a brilliant idea, you don't have to wait. You can make a video and upload it to YouTube. You can create a Tumblr. You can launch a Kickstarter campaign. You can make a petition on change.org. There are so many things that you can do. But if you've looked at any other viral campaign that's been super successful, that was able to rise above the noise and spin into something much more meaningful and much more bigger, there was a story behind it. So yes, a powerful image or a powerful video can create awareness or even catch attention. It's the story, it's the words behind it that can inspire a movement. I think Humans of New York is the perfect example of using words to create a movement, to inspire action. This photo went up on Facebook after Brandon Stanton, the founder of Humans of New York, posted it. And it was because of this young boy and his story that over $1 million was able to be raised for his Brooklyn school. As Humans of New York shows, your words have the power to connect, to smash stereotypes, to shine a light on social issues, and to drive conversations about feminism, body image, and mental illness in ways emojis could never express. It's that simple. As the editor of Young Voices at the Huffington Post, I see every day the power of the written word through the thousands of blog posts that come in written by talented teen writers. And when I think about words changing lives, I think of David Boone. David Boone was a student living in Cleveland who went from homelessness to Harvard. And he, through a series of very personal and powerful blog posts, he wrote about what it was like and what the admissions process was like. It was in his HuffPost Teen blog post where he officially announced that he was going to Harvard on a full ride. I just think it's the most incredible story. And even though we can say arguably that getting into Harvard was this life-changing moment for David, I often wonder to myself how his words, his story, which went viral, that was written in dozens of newspapers and news sites, how it touched other people, and how maybe a struggling student or someone like David who had to leave school and go straight to work to bring home a paycheck, or a student that thought to themselves, college just seems so unattainable. But because they read David's story, they read his words, they were able to be inspired and persevere as well. We live in a world with a lot of noise, both figuratively and literally. That noise in the back of our head that fills us full of self-doubt, noise from adults, the media, parents maybe even, that say you're too young, you're too inexperienced, you're too naive. But writing is where you can prove them wrong. Writing in your words, your story, can show them that you matter. And while you might not be next J.K. Rowling, you might not have the solution to the global climate crisis, your words don't have to directly change the world in order to change someone else's. Thank you.